Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Baseball Negative Podcast, the only baseball podcast that focuses solely on the bad, stupid, and asinine decisions, moves, and rules in Major League Baseball. I'm Lou Landers here with Kyle Amore, and we have some really interesting MLB winter meetings topic to discuss tonight. Of course, if you have your own negative comments about something going on in Major League Baseball, feel free to comment and we will address it. Let me bring in my man Kyle here. Kyle, you're a Cubs fan. So we saw the Cubs mortgage their future to acquire Kyle Tucker before last season. Now it looks like he's not coming back to Chicago. So he's going to find a new home via free agency. So a couple questions here. First, was it a mistake by the Cubs? And in general, taking your Cub fanhood out of it completely, is it a mistake for teams to mortgage their future for 1 year of a superstar player without any sort of, I guess, knowledge of that, the fact that they can then extend that player? Would it not make more sense to have a contract extension in place before acquiring a player like this?
Yes. I mean, you have to. It's almost the same as when you have a player about to be a free agent and you're getting ready to let them walk without getting compensation. If I'm going to acquire someone, I'm giving away top prospect like the Cubs with Tucker. They gave away Cam Smith, drafted 14th overall last year, and essentially a 1 year rental. Of course, I get it. They didn't plan on Justin Steele getting hurt and having injuries to that starting rotation. But at the same time, you do get one chance to sign a superstar or trade for him. If you're trading for him, you have to extend him. You can't just trade away the farm and then allow the guy to walk away. You just cannot do that. And I mean, in Tucker's case, I mean, yes, he dealt with a minor injury, but I mean, he was tied for first in walks, third in steals, led the Cubs in runs, and, you know, first in OBP, second in OPS. If he doesn't get hurt, he would have been first in doubles, first in triples, third or fourth in stolen bases, total bases. So a player.
And you know what, Kyle? The thing is, man, and that's all great, right?
Yeah.
You know you're getting an amazing player in Kyle Tucker. That was never going to be the issue. It's great to go after that type of player, try to make that 1 year run, so to speak. And sure, hindsight's 2020, and that's what people are going to say, I'm sure. But at the same time, you went all in on this 1 year where you weren't a bad team, but you weren't necessarily going to be a favorite at that point just from getting Kyle Tucker. You made yourself better, but you didn't make yourself instant contenders, at least in my opinion. And now you've set yourself back and don't have Kyle Tucker. At least if it's okay to set yourself back in the future while still having a player like Kyle Tucker. But they set themselves back and they don't have Kyle Tucker. And I mean, you can look at other things like what the Yankees did with Soto. Oh, yeah, they got to a World Series, this, that, the other. But at the same time, they lost an extra year of Michael King. There was a number of other pieces in that deal that might have helped the Yankees more long-term, so to speak. So, again, it really depends how you want to break it down. But to me, I think the only thing you should be doing in these types of scenarios, if you're going to go out there and trade for a guy who's on the last year of his contract, you want to almost make sure that you can sign him to an extension that even wants to be there long-term before necessarily making that deal. And if you're the team that's trading that player, I think it would behoove you as well, because if you can have an extension signed with that player, there's a better chance of a better return for you as well in that deal. Because one of the negotiating tactics is always going to be, well, we only have this player for a year, so we're not giving up as much.
No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's almost, you know, from the standpoint of, if you look at it from a football standpoint, you win when your quarterback's on a rookie contract. Correct? You don't just go out and trade the farm for it. So, you know, in this case, if you're going to get a player of that caliber, a superstar or, annual all-star, perennial all-star, you've got to hedge your trade. And, I wouldn't be shocked if you see more, you see it in basketball all the time with signing trades. They sign the contract extension and they get dealt. I haven't seen that in baseball, and that's something I would do. Is again, you don't want to trade away top prospects. Look at the Cubs too. Cam Smith. Yes, he's playing the outfield, but he's third baseman in the minor league. So now the Cubs got rid of him. They had Matt Shaw playing majority of the season at third. I get it. He had his rookie slump, and he has those bumps and bruises. But again, now you don't have Kyle Tucker. You don't know if Pete Crow Armstrong is going to do what he did this past season. That came out of nowhere. No one expected that. So, you got to fill the void that Tucker did. You have to now hope that in year two, Matt Shaw turns around, everything clicks. If not, you gave up, I would say, a pretty good piece. And also Isaac Paredes too, who,
very good player.
Yeah, if he didn't get hurt, he would have had a career year, his first year in Houston. So, and that's another thing too. And he can play third base. What the Cubs need, third baseman.
Yeah, well, Paredes can play in a number of places too, right? He happened to play third base, but he can kind of play all around the field. So some big news today. I think a lot of people were very surprised by it. I know you and I were. Orioles signed Pete Alonso to a massive deal. What's interesting about this is that prior to that, either yesterday or the day before, they had made an $150 million offer to Kyle Schwarber. What really stands out to me, though, is the Orioles need pitching. So you're going out there, you're typically pretty cheap to begin with, right? This is a team that has had issues with pitching for years. They're traditionally pretty cheap. So they're suddenly willing to spend all this money. Well, why are they going after big bats? And especially big bats that are fairly one-dimensional bats in Schwarber and Alonso. Not to take anything away from them. They're both excellent players. They both put up huge numbers. But you're thinking, where's the pitching? And to go even further than that, I know Grayson Rodriguez has had a myriad of injuries. And who knows if he'll ever pitch well again in the big leagues. But they also traded him away earlier in the offseason to the Angels for a 30-something-year-old outfielder who's set to become a free agent. None of this makes any sense to me.
No, I mean, not at all. I mean, pitching wins championships. Look at the Dodgers rotation this past season. You can't have enough pitching because your starters are going to get hurt at some point during the season. Look in the Orioles case, too. Almost all their top prospects, they're all bats. They're not pitching. They're not pitchers. They have a history, a track record of not being able to develop pitchers until either they move into the bullpen, Zach Britton, or they deal a starter like Jake Arrieta. But for Baltimore,
Kevin Gausman's a pretty good.
Yes, there you go. That's a perfect example. But this past season alone, starters 24th in ERA, 21st in WHIP, 27th in strikeouts. They surrendered the 6th most hits and 4th most home runs. That's not going to cut it. And even look at the season before. They didn't even make an attempt to try to extend Corbin Burns. Like hindsight, I get it would have bitten them with him needing Tommy John surgery. But I have to have an ace.
I think they made an offer once he was on the open market. But that's another one. It takes us back to the Kyle Tucker situation. They're acquiring Burns. He's got 1 year left. Why aren't you trying to extend him before the season or before that deal happens? Why are you waiting and waiting and waiting and then letting these players walk?
I don't understand it specifically. Again, with pitchers, if you're a franchise that has been historically terrible at developing pitching, and then you're only going to go after hitters, what do you think you're going to score 15 runs every game? Yeah, you might, but the other team's going to do it too. So it is poor planning. And if you think about it too, their youth players, like Holiday, he stepped it up in year 2. And you look, Gunnar Henderson is a superstar. So you've got all these things. Get them help. It's almost the complete opposite in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh has all these arms.
Yeah, they're going to score lots of runs, right? Jordan Westbrook's awesome too. If he's healthy, he's great. So yeah, putting Alonso in the middle of that lineup makes them great. It's a great lineup, but so what?
No,
Look at the Angels. Remember the Angels had Ohtani and Trout when Trout was in his prime?
Yeah.
They had no pitching.
No. And how many times have they made the playoffs?
I believe it's a big fat zero.
That is correct. You're wasting arguably one of the best players of our generation's career because you refuse to find pitching help. And then with the Angels now, what do? They went out, traded for Grayson Rodriguez. If there are two specific organizations that have been terrible at developing starting pitching, Baltimore and the Angels. And now you get Grayson Rodriguez, history of injuries in the minor leagues. And then this past season, he had to undergo surgery to remove a bone spur. The thing is, he was hurt. He was rehabbing before the season started, and this occurred. I wouldn't be shocked if there's more issues going on in that elbow that are going to flare up this season. So now you look at it. You traded a bat, Taylor Ward, which I get. You need pitching, but you're acquiring a young pitcher with the injury history, and more than likely,
I like it for the Angels, though. Because at least they're addressing something that is an issue for them. It might not work out, but if I'm the Orioles, if you're going to trade Grayson Rodriguez, for argument's sake, why not trade him for a veteran starter? What you actually need.
No, that's a good point. I mean, that is a very, very valid point. And
okay, well,
even if it doesn't have to be a veteran, if you want to look at a younger player that has a track record, he took a prolonged time to come back from Tommy John surgery, but no one ever mentions Shane McClanahan's name. And that's a player I would be looking at. And look at Tampa Bay. Think about all the stuff.
They trade everybody.
What's that?
They trade everybody. The
Rays. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I guarantee if you called, they pick up the phone.
Yeah, maybe not Baltimore because the interdivision thing, but in general, yeah, I think you're right. So while we're on the subject of pitchers and extensions and this and that and all that, I'm going to skip ahead because I know, we had put together a little bit of a plan, this and that, but it just makes too much sense to talk about Skubal right now. We know he's one of, if not the best pitchers in baseball. We know the Tigers, at this point, if Skubal hits the open market, probably can't contend with the bigger market clubs in signing Skubal. Now, do you blame them for that? No, I don't. So them saying we want to trade Skubal now, we might want to trade Skubal now, I can almost understand that. But that's not what my issue is. My issue is, over the years, we have seen really smart organizations. Let's look at the Atlanta Braves. I think they're a perfect example.
Perfect.
They start offering extensions to guys year 1, year 2, year 3, so that they don't have this happen when a player who's in his prime hits, late 20s, early 30s and become free agents. The Tigers' biggest mistake here was not extending Skubal 2 years ago, waiting until the very last moment, where now, sure, I think at this point, you almost have to trade him, Kyle, because sure, they're going to be worse for a year or two, no matter what, when you trade away a guy like Tariq Skubal. But do you want to play with him this year, probably go to the playoffs, lose in the wild card round, have him walk and then just get compensation pick? No. You want to get something. You want to rebuild your organization.
Yeah, I mean, the first mistake that front office made was you don't extend a guy after he's already done it. You do it before.
Or during.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and with Skubal, you saw the talent there. What were you waiting for? You can't do that. And I mean, if you look at just Detroit alone, they have 4 prospects in the top 100, all bats. Jackson Joe was their top pitching prospect. They're not going to get him back until September. So if you seriously think you can compete for the division, which they can, and you're going to trade arguably the best starting pitcher in the game, I find it hard to believe that they're going to be able to survive next season. You think about your starting rotation. Casey Mize had a good season, finally. But after that, who are you going to rely on? Who becomes your ace? If you even look at their stats, their starting pitching was pretty good. If you take Tarik Skubal out of that equation, your starting pitcher's below it, or your rotation's below average.
Certainly is. Now, of course, you would imagine if you're trading an arm like Scooble, you got to be getting back not just prospect talent, but MLB caliber pitchers. But none of them are going to come close to Scooble. Even if you get 2 number 3s, they're not Tariq Scooble. They're not winning you games.
No, I agree. And yeah, you want prospects, but in this case, when they're ready to compete for the division and get into the playoffs, you better be getting MLB ready prospects, not just guys that are, 4 years away. You need guys that you can rely on. If they can't make that opening day roster, they better be ready to come up by May, June at the latest.
Yeah, and you know what? I think a really good example and something to watch for is the Pirates and Skeens. By no means am I going to suggest the Pirates are a smart baseball organization. I'm not going to go there and say that. But there's already talks about trading trading Skeens, because the Pirates realize Skeens probably doesn't want to be here when he becomes a free agent. They could offer him a massive extension. He might not take it. Then now would be the time to extend Skeens, not in 2 years, but now. If he's not going to go on an extension, then trade him, because you're not going to win anything in the next 3 years anyways. So by the time you're ready to maybe win even with Skeens, guess what? He's going to walk.
No, absolutely. It's amazing how an organization like Pittsburgh, they're worth $1.32 billion. And you mean to tell me you can't extend the payroll for arguably one of the top starting arms for the next, 10, 15 years? It's mind-blowing. Can you imagine that package you could get for Skeens? But you've got to try. You've got to try. They owe it to the fans. You owe it to other players in the locker room too. How would you feel if you had this guy or the player himself? You're like, I'm doing all I can and I'm winning awards now. I'm arguably one of the top arms in the game or top position players, and they'll put absolutely nothing around me.
Well, you know what? You bring up a really good point. The Pirates are worth what you said, 1.2.
Yeah, 1.3 billion.
Okay, so that's a lot of money, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the biggest things we see around Major League Baseball, people like to point to the Dodgers, right? They like to say the Dodgers are ruining baseball. The Dodgers are ruining baseball because they're signing this and they're signing this. Well, I have to disagree. And before I get into that fully, I think it's worth mentioning, of course, that the Dodgers signed Edwin Diaz, superstar closer, formerly of the Mets. Mets offered him a pretty decent deal, right? But I think the bigger thing here is he goes to the Dodgers, and of course, people are going to say, oh, the rich get richer. Firstly, if I'm Edwin Diaz, why wouldn't I want to go to the back-to-back world champions who arguably have the perfect team outside of maybe a reliable closer? So why not go there and fill that one thing that they might need? So Diaz, totally get it. Dodgers, why wouldn't you do it? You have the money to do it. I think where I'm going with this, Kyle, is to go back to what you were saying. So a team like the Pirates, they're worth that much money. You're telling me that you can't spend $175, $200 million a year on your players to have a competitive team if you're worth that much money?
Yeah, when you look at it just from a numbers standpoint, 1.32 billion, that's what the team's worth. And their payroll was 87.6 million.
Yeah, so that's a problem. That's the problem. The Dodgers aren't the problem.
No.
Other ownerships in Major League Baseball.
Correct. That's what you're supposed to do. When you own a sports franchise, you want to win. You want nothing more than to win. And how do you win? You got to spend money to win. Yeah, you can develop prospects, and the Dodgers have arguably one of the top minor league organizations in the game. So they do well at that. But when you can spend the money to do it, you owe it to the players and the fans. And why would you want to own a team and not want to win?
Let me ask you this. Which Major League Baseball team is worth the least amount of money? I'm sure it's still around $1 billion, but who's at the bottom of the list?
You have at the very bottom of the list, we have
the
Miami Marlins at $1 billion exactly.
Okay. So, and how much did Miami spend on their players last year?
$67.4 million.
Okay, so you're telling me Miami can't even spend 12 to 15% of what they're worth So let's call it 120, 150 million dollars on their players.
There's
Because
no
why couldn't they? Look, I'm not expecting them to spend 350 million like the Mets do. But for instance, what are the Yankees worth? $7 billion. And what did they spend? 300 million?
They spent 293 million.
Okay. So, people will say, well, the Yankees percentage is lower, right? The Mets percentage that they're spending is lower than 10 to 15%. Sure. But that's because they happen to be able to get away with that because of what they're worth. If you want to make up the difference, not everyone is going to be worth $7 billion. But if you want to be able to make up that difference, you need to spend the money. And you clearly have the money because of what your team is worth. You're just deciding you'd rather bank the money or get a second vacation house or a helicopter or whatever else it is.
Just like your original point, you said that the Dodgers aren't the issue. They're not. The owners are. You gotta think every club is getting a lot of money from the revenue sharing and
TV deals,
yes,
everything.
Absolutely.
Not to mention money.
Well, that's why
the luxury tax.
Right, and there needs to be a floor. There needs to be a minimum that you have to spend. You cannot go below that. There has to be, if you want to be able to compete with all.
Preach, brother.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no reason for it, and then you get these organizations, even people in the front office, are like, "Oh, the Dodgers." This you could have done it too. Like, look at all the relief pitchers they signed last season. Those guys were there for many months.
Yeah, no one's doubting that the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees, even the Blue Jays, realistically now, have more money. No one is denying that. But if those teams can spend $300 million, can't you spend 130, 150?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no reason that you can't. And you brought a good point with Toronto too, because they're ranked 14th in value, $2.1 billion. But yet they had the fifth highest.
Is that Canadian? Is that 2.1 Canadian?
No. Unfortunately, I'm looking at it from American dollars. But okay. No, I mean, still, for them to be 14th on the value list.
So, firstly, I'm originally from Toronto. So yes. I can tell you, Toronto is owned by basically the media empire of Canada. Mm-hmm. They own everything. They own basically everything, TV, mobile phones, internet, blah, 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 blah. They are very, very wealthy. They can afford to buy any players, essentially. And to their credit, they've started to do that. They had a good season. They went out and they got Cease. They wanted to sign Soto. They wanted to sign Ohtani. At least they're showing, hey, we're willing to do it. They haven't always done it. But when the time is right, they can strike. So if you're, again, the Pittsburgh Pirates, now is the time to strike when you have one of the best players in all of Major League Baseball. Now is the time to strike. You're the Tigers. Offer Skeens $800 million. Just do it. Give it to them over 15 years. Defer it if you have to. We've seen the Dodgers defer it. Why not you defer it? Do what you got to do to keep your guys. It's not $800 million all at once. It's $800 million over probably 12 years.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it from Detroit's standpoint too, you have Skubal. If you could, they have the prospects if they wanted to make an offer to Pittsburgh, and I promise you they wouldn't refuse that offer with the Max Clark alone. And I mean, you could deal 4 or 5 prospects, and they're all in the top 100. And you can
push those chips in, man. Push those chips
Absolutely.
in. Don't trade Skubal. Go out there and trade for guys to make you better so you can win with Skubal.
Absolutely.
Everyone's always worried about, how can I save the money? How can I save the assets? Go out there and be aggressive. The teams that go out there and are aggressive are the teams that win consistently.
Yeah,
and guess what? When you win, you make more money.
Oh yeah, and you said also the prospects. There's an expiration date on these guys. I mean, think about Clint Frazier, how long he spent in the minor leagues before Cleveland decided to move.
Yeah, his value dropped the moment he came to the big leagues.
Yes, Yeah, absolutely. So my thing is, with all the analytics and everything to evaluate prospects, they know what they have. Don't hold on to them too long. If you can go out and win, do it. It does not matter. Look at the Cubs when they traded for Aroldis Chapman, turned into a World Series, the first one in 108 years. Make the deal, win. Don't hold on to these prospects. There's only so many positions as is, in your starting lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, Gleyber Torres ended up being solid.
Oh yeah,
for the Yankees. He had a good year last year for the Tigers. He didn't end up being generational though, and the Cubs got their World Series.
Right. It's win-win,
Aggressive.
and that's like one of the
You
trades where it actually wins out. It worked out well.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's the fault of other owners, not the Los Angeles Dodgers, folks. So you can take the easy road and say, "Oh, the Dodgers are ruining baseball." No. The other owners, the cheap owners that don't care about winning, they just care about lining their pockets. Those people are the ones with the issues. Kyle, anything else you got here tonight? Any final?
Yeah, I mean, just to hit on that topic too. I mean, we're talking about these ownerships that do not want to spend. It's kind of ironic too, because if you look at these teams that spend the least, they've been pretty historically bad at developing talent. And you see teams that are getting top draft picks and they still can't hit on them. Or look at Colorado. I remember it's been probably like almost 10 years, but they had the number 1 pick and they went for a starting pitcher. Why in that ballpark would you do that? You mean to tell me you didn't have anyone in the front office like, it's probably a bad idea? Also, he's a high school pitcher, so there's a lot of mileage on that arm. Come on.
Yeah, well, again, the Rockies are not necessarily the smartest organizations either. I mean, it's funny how this podcast even came to be, right? We were talking last night about how are the Twins not making Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez available, and then it was kind of like, why do people never talk about the negatives? It's always this is great, that's awesome, this guy's the best, and it's kind of how the podcast came to be. So I hope everyone enjoyed our first episode. We have a lot more awesome stuff to come your way. Of course, all the dumb rules, other signings, other things that are going to happen in season. It's going to be a blast for us. But we thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And thanks for tuning in to the Baseball Negative Podcast. Lou Landers, Kyle Amore. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drrodo.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.